Next, I'd like to invite our next panel to join us on stage. Connie Ogle and Melinda Aish are going to facilitate an internal conversation about the use of AI and some of the concerns that we have, some of the ways we're using it. And I would like to invite your panelists up as well. And Jenny Barr is going to graciously assist in moderating chat for us. Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and jump right in since we're running low on time. We don't want to run into lunch. So we're just going to first ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and let everyone know what discipline they teach in at the college.
My name is Jennifer Myers. I am with the education program here at HAC, and I'm a virtual educator.
Hello, I'm Shannon Davis, Science Department, Biology.
Robert Wagner, Science, Physical Science.
Steve Lustig, Business Studies.
Karen Barone, Communication.
Christina Julan, CIS.
And all of these faculty members here today were part of the AI faculty learning community during this past spring semester, so that's why we invited them to join us today.
Okay, so I have the first question for us, and I'm going to ask Steve this question. What is one word that comes to mind when you think of AI in higher education?
Challenging. Challenging. Yeah.
I'm also going to ask Shannon if she can answer that.
I actually thought of two. The two that came to mind were opportunities and also transformative.
Okay, and how about you, Karen?
1995. No, I thought about this because to me it seems like where we are with what do we do with AI is where we were in 1995 when we all went, OMG, what do we do with the internet? They're using it to cheat. It's the same thing. So 1995 is my answer, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The next question I have for Steve, Robert, and Christina. So what are your biggest concerns or hesitations about AI in the classroom? So we'll start with Steve and then go with Rob and then Christina.
Go first.
I didn't put my name on this, but I can, yeah,
We don't have your name on any, so we're picking for you.
I just have to read it last.
Well, you let us know which one you want then. So we'll go with, we'll let Steve and Rob
I
answer.
did have a word for
Okay.
and my word for AI in education was turbulence, because it is inevitable. And so are you going to stop flying? You're not going to stop flying. But if you have guardrails and safety measures in place, that can help us navigate. So,
Yeah, great answer.
So my,
I'm going to cut you out because they need the mics.
Oh,
I'm old here, so.
there are, oh, we're going to pass the mic. There are mics.
okay.
Probably going to squeal.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, we can slide them around.
He's got it.
Okay.
My thought about AI, and I'm going to be talking with my colleagues in business studies, is what Jennifer just presented to us, which is everybody's using it. And we need to prepare our students. That's primarily one of the things that we're doing here. And it's going to be different in every discipline, and that's why I use the word challenge, even within business studies. You know, how I do it, talking in my law class is going to be different than Jason does it in his accounting class, or Ryan does it in his marketing class, and so it's a huge challenge, and we're going to have to lean on each other, you know.
Yeah, a couple of the things that I've looked at with it and some of the concerns, certainly we've looked at just a lot of the integrity that's involved and what student is doing the work or what they're using the AI for. But there's also could be an issue of equity as to who has access to which AI. I mean, this group of students is paying for AI and has the premium version, and someone else is using the free version, and someone else has a really poor internet connection and has to go someplace to get Wi-Fi and can't really use it. So there's also a concern with that, as well as just the intrinsic biases with AI that we talked about a little bit.
Okay, do we hear from? So I'm going to ask people, what's one way you've already used AI in your teaching? And I'll start with Karen.
So one of the first ways I started using it was to design rubrics. Like I wrote this glorious assignment and I was exhausted, right? And so I'm like, wonder what it would do for a rubric, right? And I tossed it in there and I was like, Shazam, that would have taken me another hour. And so that was probably the first way I use it. But one of the ways I also use it is to kind of coalesce what students write for their discussion posts. We start our class with discussions, and they have to put a discussion post about what we've read or gone over for the class. And I read those and I grade those discussions. And then I used to, by hand, type a summary of each discussion for each student and then organize it by theme. And that took a long time, right? So what I started doing was after I graded them, put them into a Google Doc. And I said to AI, and again, it's all about the prompts you give AI. It's all about the prompts. And I said, organize these by thread, by topic, keep the student's first name with it, and summarize the key points they made in 7 to 9 words. And boom, it did it. And one of the greatest things that came from that is I put that up on the screen as we have our discussion. So students know when they're going to be called on. They can see what their notes were. But I had one student, and I tell them I use AI to do this. I'm very forthcoming about it. But I had one student go, that is not the point of my discussion. And I said, really? What was the point of your discussion? And so they went on and on and on. And I said, wow. And so we talked about the point of their discussion. And then I said, why do you figure AI got that wrong? And she said, well, to be honest, I spent 12 sentences on this other thing that AI talked about and only mentioned my really important part in the last sentence. I said, so you confused the computer. Imagine how your audience must have felt if they read it. And she's like, okay, well, you have a point. So that's one of the early ways I started using it.
You want to go next, Steve?
Yep, I can.
Or Robert?
Okay. Yeah, I've used a couple. I have an assignment that I've used that I've been experimenting with over the last year or so, where I give students sort of an open-ended question, the kind of thing I would have given in a face-to-face class as a short answer question on an exam. And I give them the question, I give them the answer, and I tell them to put it into ChatGPT. And I give them certain restrictions on it, whether it's a number of words or answering it in a certain voice or something, and have them compare what ChatGPT did versus the answer that I provide for them. So their analysis isn't answering the question, but actually analyzing the work that ChatGPT did in terms of answering the question. So kind of gets them to use the AI, but makes them actually analyze and look at what it answered and how it compared to the answer that I gave.
Shannon?
Question? Yeah.
What did you ask them to do? What's the question that you asked them? You teach what I teach.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part, Ken.
You teach what I teach. What did you ask them to answer?
Oh, goodness, I try to remember one of the questions off the top of my head. Quickest one that comes to mind, just because I remember it comes up, is just calculating the distance to Mars using light travel time. And I mean, there's other ones that are general. Okay, this about a galaxy. I mean, listing the different types of galaxies and their properties or something, and then seeing what it comes up with. Yeah.
Shannon? Is it on?
I used AI to develop a thesis assignment for Science 100 for students to develop their thesis statement. And I thought I was so brilliant in this idea and put this prompt into AI and it spit out everything I asked for. And I gave the assignment to students, and guess what? Students could do the exact same thing I did, right? Put the prompt in and spit it all out. And I think what Robert just mentioned about an experiment is what's really important. I think a lot of times we feel our assignment has to be perfect before we put it out there. And I think this is just an experiment in just go with something, try it, use it. After the very first semester, I realized I had a lot of issues that I needed to fix, but that's okay. And then going back and making those changes to the assignment to better reflect what those specific skills are that you want the students to know. But I think just not being afraid to take the step and just put something out there and see how it goes. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but it never is.
Okay, Christina, can you answer that question? Yes.
So I teach hardware, and we use it a lot for troubleshooting. And so I like to use Perplexity because Perplexity is one platform that promotes themselves as far as accuracy, and you can trace back where the answers are coming from. And so when students would ask for how would you troubleshoot a specific issue in a lab, we would then examine the feedback that we would receive, and then we would think about, well, what other ways can we do this? So I use it as truly a tutor in the classroom, a live tutor in the classroom, and then we go a step further and we investigate. Is it correct? Where is the information coming from? Who were the sources that were used to give us this information?
All right, the next question. I think this question is something I'm really interested in because you hear from employers what they're really wanting is critical thinking skills. And I have 3 teenage boys, and that's an area that's often lacking, and I'm always talking to them about that. So the question is, how do you feel AI might affect student learning or critical thinking? And we'll start with Steve on that.
Yeah, I think that AI, if we don't take control of this, will take control of student learning. And so that we have to come up with innovative ways. It's going to take a huge amount of work and a lot of thought to find ways to use it in our own disciplines, because otherwise it'll just take over everything. I'm already using, I don't know if we're going to get to the PackBack, or is that a separate question?
It's a separate
It was like,
question.
how are we using it? So we have a product at Hack it's called PackBack, and it uses AI in 2 different ways. One is a discussion function where students can ask questions. And that's one of the things that I try to get my students to do. And so my prompt in the AI section that they write in, and I'll tell you what the AI does, is ask a question about chapter 2, whatever, the Constitution. And they're supposed to ask any question, I don't care what it is, a question they didn't understand or they thought is interesting or something, with a citation. And the computer, the AI, is giving them feedback on the robustness of their response. One of the problems I detected most recently is I think the students were using AI to put the question into the AI. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but what was just mentioned here about having it summarize things is a really interesting thought that I might use it for.
Karen?
That's me, sorry. So I can't say this enough, that I feel like in academia, we are exactly where we were 30 years ago, worrying about the internet and what's that going to do to student learning. They're just going to look it up on the internet. We have not evolved in the way we think about this. And so I think we have to think about that truly and teach them how to use it. And the librarians here at Hack have a wonderful process called SIFT, to evaluate sources. You should all be teaching students how to do that with their web searching, but we need something similar, a similar kind of process to say, how do you evaluate what it is giving you, and how do you know? Because students, I won't even say that, humans will look for the easiest way possible to get the job done. All of us will. And so without further training, I think students will not develop their critical thinking unless we tell them and teach them how to not take it at face value what it gave them, but to dive deeper and look at why it gave them what it gave them, and how they could adjust their prompt, how they could adjust that, how does that cause them to ask more questions? And I think that's really in the skill, is us teaching them how to use it to dig deeper.
Christina?
Yes. So I will echo what my colleagues are saying. Clearly, I am English as a second language, and I remember when I had to learn to write in English, there was this newsflash always: don't fall in love with your first draft. So don't fall in love with the first answer that comes back, because if you do, then it becomes a crutch. And so I always emphasize to students, ask a question, ask another question, ask a third question, compare the origin with the starting point with your end point, and just really think of it. I think this is important. We say AI, it's artificial intelligence. It's a machine, collection of machines, so they have the power, we have the power. So I constantly stress that you should act as if you are an investigator. So it's a great starting point, but don't give your power away. And so I think with that, you usher in critical thinking. Thank you.
Shannon?
I wasn't really sure about critical thinking until the presentation we just had. The presenter was talking about having them reflect on their prompt and reevaluate their prompt and come up with a new prompt. That in and of itself is critical thinking. So that was kind of interesting to me, and I never really thought about it that way. But if anyone has used the new online tutoring program that the Learning Center is offering, that is a really good example of forcing students to use critical thinking as they're using AI. As you can put in a question, and then the AI then asks them, what do you already know about this? So it's really having them, the student, as they're using this tutoring program, really has to think about what they already know and critically evaluate what they know. And that AI program really leads them in a way that forces them to reflect and think critically. So I think that was a great example of AI being used to force the students to think critically.
Okay, great. Our next question is, what skills do we want students to gain that AI should not replace? And I'll start with Robert on this one.
Okay, I'll go ahead. The first things that came to my mind were the critical thinking, synthesis, analysis, and even leaning a little into science in terms of the different lab work that we do. But then I was trying to think of other things, so since it's an AI, I went ahead and put the question into ChatGPT and asked it, what else does it come up? And it came up with some things that moral questions, ethical questions, things that I didn't really think about that also, are issues that really, I'm sure the ChatGPT can answer, but then it depends on who programmed, what moral code is there programmed into it. So those are certain things. So couldn't resist not using it as well a little bit for the question here.
Okay, Jen?
I'd say when I first encountered AI a couple semesters ago, I really thought that, actually kind of arrogantly, that I'm an education professional. They're going to learn to be teachers. What can AI do? They can't cheat with AI. And I put everything in my class is project-based, very authentic activities. So I put some of my assignments in and was very, very upset to find that, they can cheat with AI in a project-based course. So it did make me reevaluate some things. And that is one of my big concerns, though, when a student can put an assignment in and get an output that's project-based, they don't have the skills or the understanding to actually replicate that in a classroom with real learners. So they can't differentiate, they can't understand the why, and in teaching that why, that differentiation is just so valuable and most important. So for me, it was, I've been trying to design things to build that critical thinking that I think AI doesn't always give them, but they can't, I don't think they can grow in our field if they don't get that component, and I have big concerns for the future.
Christina?
So I would say the same thing, inquiry, and also what I don't want students to lose, which is easy with a machine, is the social interaction, group study, working with your peers, have your peers evaluate. So it's great that we have, again, these agents that can assist, but I think AI can give us an opportunity to amplify the importance of working together with humans, and that's especially after COVID. COVID really has put us in containers. And although we're connected, we are the most disconnected that we've been in a very long time. So I don't want them to hide behind prompts and a machine. So I encourage the engagement. That's what I don't want them to lose. I don't want them to forget what it's like to be human. I think that's very important. So we could use the technology, yes, to get the answers, yes, to refine, but to remember that we are still the most magic ingredient.
Thank you. Next question, and this is a tough one, and only Karen put her name down, but if anybody else wants to chime in after her, feel free. What institutional or ethical policies would help you feel more confident using AI in your teaching?
This one gave me pause to answer it, but I think we need more open, I think having this forum as for our week 0 is great to get people to know about, but I think a lot of us sit out here in the audience and go, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what a platform is. And I think that our discussion group really helped us get acquainted with what it was and tiptoe out into it and play with it. But I don't think the college can come up with a universal policy. It's not like the SAS program where you can say these are accommodations and this is what it is. It's not the same because everybody has a different level of comfort with using it, a different understanding of how it works, and so you can't just write one policy. I did go out on the college's website to look at some of the resources that we have available out there on using, for our faculty, on using AI. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't know who here is from tech, but a lot of the links don't work. Just saying. But some of the policies were actually very good and they link to other schools. And I think writing your own policy is important. And up until now, my policy has been, don't do it. Because I didn't know how to guide them. I didn't know what to say, right? So I wrote a new policy for my students and I said, basically, you can use AI to generate ideas, to brainstorm, to organize details, but no more than 10% of your work can be from it. And if you used it, you have to cite it. You have to tell me how you used it. And if you're not sure how to use it, come to me, let's talk about it. I'll show you how to use it, right? And so I'm trying to be like, don't use the internet. I don't want to do that again, right? I don't want to go back 30 years ago. So I think it's really having something that is comfortable for you. But the only way for you to be comfortable with it is to dive in and try it and join some of these discussion groups.
Up to the next question. Ooh, a tough one. What are some ways AI could be integrated into student assignments without compromising academic integrity? And we'll start with Steve.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Jennifer's presentation as a summary, and with some of the resources that she cited, and I don't know that I could add to that. Let me just say.
Okay, so we'll pass it on to Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I said there was a lot of good information there. I mean, a lot of the things in terms of using it for brainstorming, disclosing when it's being used, using it as your guide and resource in terms of helping you get started. I mean, I use it if I just need to get started, get some ideas. As I said with my last question, it gave me some other ideas of things that I hadn't actually thought about specifically. For mine, I have students write a short paper. Now, I don't care if they want to have it finessed by AI because I'm not grading their writing, I'm grading their scientific analysis. What did they read? I read an article and they're telling me about it, but I'm not sitting there and grading their grammar and everything because that's what their English is. The English teachers are going to teach them, and my class doesn't even have an English requirement, so I don't even have students who've necessarily taken English 101 yet. They could still be in, the remedial English classes. So I'm looking for their content. So if they want to use that, as long as they tell me, I'm fine if they use that as a resource.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I really, being in this learning group in the spring, and made me rethink a lot of my assignments to see how I could integrate it and give them, I did have that fear if I gave them the taste of it, they would want to use it more, but also showing them how to use it appropriately and how they would use it in the field of teaching. One of the things, I'm the field placement coordinator for our program, so I send the students out for observation hours and they have to contact mentor teachers. And one of the things I see most in our program is their poor written skills. And so they construct these emails to their mentor teachers in school districts, and it's quite embarrassing. And we've tried as instructors individually to work with students and get them prepared. So one of the things that we're hoping to utilize is the ability for them to construct emails using ChatGPT. I know a lot of professionals that do that, even within our college. So I think it's an appropriate way for them to finesse their written skills in the email format. And our hope in our program is the more that they read and hear language like that, it becomes more normal to them, because as students, they might not write that kind of email, they text, they use abbreviations, so we're hoping that improves their own written skills. Another area was mentioned a lot is brainstorming for projects, lesson plans, activities that we're doing. That's pretty much the easiest way, I think, to integrate it appropriately. I like them to show me what they got for their brainstorm and then show me how they made changes to it and thought critically about it. And then within the teaching field, and hopefully maybe some of you can use this, AI can really generate quick materials. We mentioned rubrics. So we work with early childhood. I had a student that was writing a lesson plan, and she was doing something with apples and she was doing something with a vowel sound. I said, well, let it create a poem or a song for your students to intro your lesson. And she put in her search parameters, came out colorful, this great little handout that she could send home with the kiddos, but it literally took 30 seconds, where she would have been trying to come up with something on her own, brainstorming literature for our students. So if you break down your assignments into smaller chunks and ask them to use it for specific tasks, I think it's very authentic to what would be happening in our field of education.
Christina?
So pretty much echoing what my colleagues just said, but with all due respect, I constantly hear ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, even after the 5.0 launch, which was not as stellar as they would have hoped, there are other platforms. So when I integrate and I encourage that they should use AI, try different platforms. Try different platforms and see what responses you get back. And just like AI is inevitable, the librarians are irreplaceable. And so I always say that is your hook. Librarians are not going anywhere. Actually, they're the gatekeepers to what is true information in JL. In our group, he actually caught Perplexity hallucinating a little bit, and so thank you for that. So yes, let's use it
but also realize that librarians play a critical role, and that there are many different platforms that constantly go through revisions and enhancements, and then being able to orally defend your assignment. How did you get to your result? Can you explain? So I felt a bit validated after the presentation this morning, because it echoes some of my sentiments about being able to defend your position.
I'm not on to this question, but one of the things that came out of our discussion group in the fall was you provided us with a list, and we brainstormed a list of all the different types of AI platforms and what they're good at. And that list is what got me started, because I found things like Magic School, which is primarily K-12, but they write the best rubrics, I gotta tell you, all right? And another one is Brisk, which I use heavily now. But can we provide that list? Because I think that's what would help people to tiptoe into it, is to even know what the heck is an AI platform.
Yes.
Can we make that available? That would be great.
Yes, and that constantly changes.
Oh, Kathleen Heidecker apparently did put the link in the chat for, I think, the resource tools that you have, but we'll make sure everybody gets that out as well.
That kind of gets into something that I've been wondering. Everybody's talking about LLM. That's not the only kind of AI.
Correct. Right.
So, in the LLM, I mean, even when we talk about generative AI, that's not the only kind of generative AI.
Correct. Right.
So there's specialized ones like a chess AI program, or the ones that mathematicians are using now to write proofs. Those aren't LLM. They have different parameters, different limitations, and different abilities. So we also have to keep that in mind. There's not just one kind of AI.
Correct. And I'm going to extend upon that. When software became sophisticated and we were so amazed by all these things that software can do, again, with all due respect, AI is software on steroids, okay? And so there are different types. There's predictive, which kind of fails us royally, because we can't rely on predictive.
To be fair, everything in any AI is just math.
Correct.
That's all computers can do.
It's a machine. That's why I keep coming back to it's a machine, and think of it as artificial. I don't think it's.
I mean, when you think about what a computer does when you're running Zoom, all computers do is that.
Yeah.
It's what you're doing with all that addition that makes everything else.
AI has been here for a very long time. We're very good at rebranding things, machine learning, computer vision. We're going back to the late 40s when we talked about neurons and synapses and connections. And so that's sort of the beginning of where computer vision started with the neural networks. So again, I always make a case for don't give away that which is a privilege, being a human.
Thank you. What professional development or training would make you feel more prepared to incorporate AI into your teaching? Shannon.
As you're listening to some of the responses up here, I know there's some of you who are saying, I have no idea what they're even talking about, what these words mean. And I can say that the FLC that we had last semester, I went into that not really sure, what I was going to do with that, or how AI was, what was I going to take away from it? And that's what I think was very, very powerful. The FLC group had, I think, all of the people that are up here, plus more. And there's a huge variety in comfort level, knowledge, background information, and again, I knew pretty much nothing. But what they did was they provided confidence to me that go try something, just go do it. A lot of sharing of assignments, sharing of ideas, and that's where I think we can really build each other and help each other moving forward. So I think in terms of professional development, joining these FLCs and sharing is really important to move all of us forward in this area.
Okay, and I have a next question, which kind of relates, is how can faculty collaborate across disciplines to navigate AI's opportunities and risks together? And I'll start with Steve.
What we're doing right now, across disciplines, I think within disciplines is really critical. And in particular, my thought in watching the presentation is that we need to go back to our advisory committees, for example, and ask them, how are you specifically using it in your businesses, so we can figure, and we know they are. We asked them last year, and I think 100% of them said yes in business, and asked them, what do our students need to learn? And that's going to guide us in some ways on how to structure within discipline. So I think a lot of it's going to be discipline specific, but I think we can learn cross disciplines, obviously in the faculty learning community and other opportunities like this. Yeah.
Shannon?
Coming back to the shout out to the librarians, Andrea. Andrea and I collaborated for, again, the Science 100 class. Without her support and her knowledge, we wouldn't be where we are with that assignment. Or she also created part of the LibGuide has some AI information for students. So it was truly a collaborative effort that I think Andrea really helped me and motivated me to have the confidence to move forward. So again, librarians have a lot of understanding, a lot of background information that can help all of us in all the disciplines to kind of navigate if we're unsure.
All right, next question. What message do we want to send to students about using AI responsibly and ethically? And we'll start with Karen.
I think first is to tell them how we are using it, or tell them that we are afraid to use it. I mean, I think being honest about it and being honest about what our concerns are, because I openly express my concerns about AI and why I think they're really here to build skills. And the AI is a great thing to help, but they got to build the skills on their own too. And so I think that it's to demonstrate how we use it ethically and responsibly, and show them ways how to use it ethically and responsibly, and let them know that it's a tool. It is not the end-all be-all of what they do. And it cannot replace their minds. It cannot replace what they are capable of, but it is a tool to enhance. And I think that's really important.
Steve?
This one I think I feel most strongly about is the concern that students don't appreciate bias and ethical uses of it, and what Christina said, keeping the human in the process of it. And so I think the message I want to send to my students is all of that, and working with colleagues to figure out how do we teach students not just that you can use it, but use it in the right way, in the ethical way, and that's the biggest thing I see.
Robert?
The biggest things, like I encourage them in many cases, using it as a resource, but then of course with anything else you got to verify. So, go research and find out what else. Did the AI get something right? Did it get something wrong? And to me, the biggest thing for them, if they're going to use it, I just say, if you're going to use it, just disclose to me that you're using it so that I know why, this looks really strange. This writing doesn't look like your emails because it's so polished that you used AI to do that. At least then I know where you did. And in many cases, I'll just say, just send me your original draft so I can see where you started. But I think just disclosing the use, let me know that you're using it, is a big thing.
Christina?
Again, I echo what my colleagues are saying, but I think just recently I read an article about the implications when it comes to cognition. So if we're just going to rely on AI, it has proven that there's cognitive decline that can happen. And so what I try to always encourage students is to take control. Okay, take control of your learning, be involved, and it's already been stated by my colleagues, you know, that how important it is that we actively engage, and it is through that collaborations, and I know we can collaborate online, but in person, I think there is also merit to having, you know, study groups and peer review amongst students. I think that definitely can elevate the bar. It can help them appreciate what they bring to the table.
Jen?
I think the one thing I want the students to take away is that it does make mistakes, and at lower levels, they might not be able to recognize those mistakes. So I do feel like for our students that it is going to be good to put assignments into AI and walk them through. Let's look at this, just like we would with another student example. What did AI get right about this lesson plan? What did AI get wrong about this lesson plan? So I do think we need to be very intentional in our teaching with some of our intro students of what looks good and what doesn't look good, so they can start to be more critical when they use it. The citation is really important because not only does that show me that they used it, but also I can see the kind of things they're getting out of AI as AI evolves, and again, bring that into the classroom to point out to them. So I think more than anything, I want to use it to make teachable moments in my instruction to them so they can then use it effectively. And last, for our students in a technical career-based skill field of education, I want them to know that they can probably cheat themselves pretty far in our program using AI, but that's not going to make them successful in their workforce. And the bottom line is, if you want to cheat yourself through, why are you in this field? You should be enjoying your pathway if that's what you want to do as your future career. So just kind of, if it's not for them, then maybe this degree isn't for you. Find something you love that you don't need to cheat AI with. So we just try to be very real with them, and that's how I really approached it this summer, and then try some new things this fall.
Okay, our last question before we open it up to others. What are the long-term possibilities you imagine if we intentionally embrace IA in higher education? And I'll start with Steve.
The long term, I'm going to go back to the word challenge, is that outside of education, everyone's using it. Our students are all using it. If we don't make ourselves relevant on how we teach our students with it, we're going to become irrelevant. So the key for us long term, I think, is being able to use this tool in a way discipline specific, maybe only a little, maybe a lot, depends on your discipline, but somehow incorporating it into which I'm going to advocate at our department meeting this week, is advocating it to put it into our program outcomes and course outcomes, competencies and outcomes. So I think it's critically important that we all think about it to some extent and maybe just take baby steps in the beginning. Maybe that's enough to start and see how we can move forward.
Okay, Christina?
I'm going to add what comes to mind when I look at long term. Actually, there could be a huge positive here that if we could use AI to lecture, to do the heavy lecture. So I think AI is going to continue to develop, to enhance, and then we will have AI that's specific to education, AI that's specific to discipline, where we can have sort of a teacher assistant, but an AI who could do a lot of the teaching, where I would consider that phase one. And then phase two is where we come in as faculty and we would have that more one-on-one with the student. I think that there's an opportunity here with AI to allow us to increase what we want. We always talk about student sense of belonging, feeling like they belong. Well, we constantly have to refine what we do, and we go to all these trainings, and then where do we have time for everything? If we could use the machine to do a lot of the heavy lecture, and then we become the phase 2 where we can have more one-on-one with the student. That's what I see as far as the future of using AI in a positive way, where it can actually help, it can free us a bit with everything that we have to do academically as faculty. So we are more present for our students so they can feel that that is the case. So I think that there is a benefit here to come closer together, student and faculty, if we use it as a main delivery method. So I'm not saying replacing the faculty member, but being able to have a lot of the theory. I mean, if you've run a lot, you can have the same lecture over and over again. If you can perfect it and you can have an AI sort of put it in a container, then we become that expert that the student can interact with. So I'd like to look at it that it can help us with what we've been trying to accomplish, and that is make the student feel at home, make them feel like they belong. And so that's my vision of the future. I look at AI instead of thinking about it as what's the worst that can happen, what's the most amazing thing that can happen. What's the most beautiful thing that can happen if we use this to do the busy work? Because as it was presented to us this morning, it can help us with productivity. And we know that we are responsible for productivity with self-assessments at the end of the year. So if it can help us with that so we could be more present, I think that's very important.
Thank you. So we'll open it up for questions. Melinda will bring the mic down, and either Dr. Al. I'm going to take the mic down. Okay. Sure.
First and foremost, I want to give this group a round of applause. Please do so. Second of all, I would definitely encourage you to continue to join them and the faculty learning communities around artificial intelligence. You're going to learn a lot more today, but I will tell you, I spent 3 intensive days at Harvard this past year looking at artificial intelligence with 29 college leaders from around the country. And as Christine said, that bus has left, that train has left, that ship has left. Here's the reality. I'm going to go back to the word I said early on today. You're the expert. It's not going to replace you. The reason why you're sitting in the audience, getting to Megan's point, is because you have the knowledge, skills, and ability. You have the credentials to be faculty at Harrisburg Area Community College. So you need to start there. You're the expert. The key of it is, how did you get there? You became learners in your content areas. That's what you got to continue to do, is figure out how and where does artificial intelligence actually intersect with what you're doing in the classroom. Students are going to come. They're using it now down in the kindergartens. These kids they are using it. So at some point in time, you're going to be confronted with it. There was 3 words that I heard today as I sit in the back and I listen that really, I think is critically important. Thank you, Karen. You made a very valid point in a couple of your comments, so I want to go back to that. First and foremost, the moral implication of AI, cheating, that's a moral issue. So if you as faculty are leading, you're the experts, and I said earlier, you're mentoring, you're coaching students, you got to have that conversation up front. You got to actually set the expectation. Tell them how you're using, tell them what your fears are. But at the end of the day, you still have an expectation because you have learning outcomes. That is really crucial. So I don't believe, and Janice and I talked about this almost 2 years ago, because of technology is advancing so fast, For us to have a static policy would be almost ludicrous. We have to have some baselines about the biasness. We have to have some baseline about the moral and the ethical aspects of it. But you need to have the opportunity to be initiators and innovators and creatives as it relates to how you're utilizing it in your classroom. So I'm going to walk around it. And so whoever wants to have a comment of this wonderful panel, thank you very much. Any questions? I'm going to bring the mic to you. Oh, got one in the back. I need some steps. That's why I'm doing this.
Good morning, I'm Jennifer Gonzalez. I teach medical assisting and allied health courses. I think there was someone who had mentioned about creating an AI policy for your course. I'm very lucky that I only have like a few faculty members under our department. So where I actually started was at ChatGPT itself. I inserted, okay, can you create a AI policy for this course? And that's where I started. I kind of just like kept asking questions. Can you improve this? Can you add this? Can you delete this? And was able to generate my own AI policy. So if anybody's interested, I'm more than happy to share that. But that would be a good starting point if you're completely new to ChatGPT.
Any other questions? Oh, let me stop here.
Hi, my name is David Liu. I teach. I just want to kind of follow up on something that I think you all have been circling around. I think, I know we've been talking about cheating, we're talking about learning outcomes, talking about skills, but I think we all know in this day and age that the greatest challenge, at least for me, is to get students to want to learn what they need to know. And I think, certainly Christina was talking about this, Jennifer was talking about this, she said some folks just, if they want to cheat their way through a program, it's evidence that they don't really want to be here. I find more and more students, they're here in order to not have to be here. Now, I understand that, yes, you have to get a job, et cetera, but this goes back to what Christina kept on coming back to, well, what does it mean to be human? And I think what we need to focus on, among all the other technical requirements, learning outcomes, and avoiding cheating, is how do we inspire students to want to learn? If the student wants to learn communications, planetary astronomy, if they want to learn it, then we're not going to have to worry about cheating because they're going to want to learn it. So I just find that our emphasis, on the learning outcomes, especially the technical ones, which are warranted, right? That seems to kind of overshadow a lot of our expertise, which is not just technical expertise. It's inspiring students to want to learn. And I think that may be the most important. This is where they can't outsource this. This is where AI, I don't care how sophisticated, it's not going to inspire students to want to learn. This is where Christina kept on saying it, right? This is engagement, this is communication, this is collaboration, all these things that get students to want to learn, to want to be here, to persist, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to say, I think all of you have been circling around this point, and I think it just needs to be kept front and center rather than to say, oh, well, that's something we'll come to after we get these learning outcomes taken care of. So, thank you.
Very good point, David, because that human aspect is very important as you are aspiring students.
Hi, Peggy McGuire again, teach writing. A term was used earlier in the presentation this morning that is one of my favorite things to think about, and that's metacognition. And then at the same time, there was talk about using questions about what I just did, what I just learned, what just happened, more as a monitoring tool. And I'm wondering if any of you guys have tried, and maybe I have a feeling you have, actually turning that into a metacognitive strategy where you're not asking to monitor, you're asking students to ask themselves. So, and actually setting up dedicated time and structures in which we're going to now think about what did I just do? What just happened? How do I know it happened? Where did I learn how to do that? Where did that information come from? And maybe, given the your concern about belonging maybe become part of that structure. Because here we are, we're at a perfect time, we're learning as we're asking them to learn. So why not make it a community that we're a part of? I mean, I've had teachers talk to me about doing things like that, and I think it's so cool that you actually become part of, like you have a circle. You know, say, all right, let's go around, everybody talk about one thing you learned today that you didn't know before, but I'm part of that circle. So anyway, I'm just thinking about metacognition, and I'm thinking about really how powerful that is, where people actually think about learning, think about thinking, understanding what they learned and how they learned so that they can build on that. So I am curious about if any of you have built that specifically into your teaching strategies, and if so, how it worked.
Yeah, I'll take that. So I use a pedagogy called flipped learning, and a lot of people are familiar with that, and I've been an advocate of that for many years. But what students have to do is they have to come into class having actually read the chapter that we're going to talk about, having actually watched my lecture videos, and their entrance ticket is a post in the discussion board that says, it's called Show, Tell, and Ask. Show me something that you've learned, tell me something that this made you think of, or ask a question. And so that's how we start every single class, and that's what I said. I summarize, I grade it, I summarize it, organize it by theme, put it on the board so everybody can see everybody's thoughts, and everybody has to speak in the class, and everybody has to go around and share that. And students tell me, and does that take time? Yes. But students tell me they get the most out of that than anything else that we do, because it causes them to have questions, and it leads to better discussion, and they're actually engaged with the material. Because again, with flipped learning, everybody came in, instead of knowing nothing, we all have a level knowledge that we all know this much now, so we can talk about it. And that's made the biggest difference in my teaching, that's made the biggest difference in the grades that students get, and in the feedback that I get as well, is that they have that opportunity to share with each other.
So I want to thank both Connie Ogle and Melinda H. for facilitating our panel, and thank you to all of our faculty who participated. One more round of applause for this group.
Thank you for being the brave one to put it together the first time.